So I know things are hard in the world right now, and we're in a dark time. It's getting dark really early, and we're entering into the holidays, which can be good, but also super stressful. And I've had a crazy week. I'm getting ready to leave. And I really just wanted to show up this morning and preach a nice sermon about using your talents for the church so that we could all just relax a little bit and be on our merry way and talk about, the time and talent sheets that we have and how great everyone at Peace is because you all use your talents and share of yourselves so much. And I appreciate that. I really do. And that's the sermon I want to preach, but I just can't because I get to that line about the outer darkness, and all I can think of are the people in Gaza and their homes and their schools and the hospitals with no power, with no light, with no way to cook or no way to keep life-saving machinery going or things refrigerated. And I hear the line about the wailing and the weeping and gnashing of teeth, and I have images from the news flashing through my mind of October 7th and the people in Israel when the bombs from Hamas landed and there were 1,200 killed and so many wounded, so much destruction. And I think of the images from Gaza and just these landscapes of just gray rubble as far as you can see, and knowing that there are people, there are children underneath that rubble, dead and alive, and thinking of the parents of the babies in the hospital that aren't able to get the treatment that they need, and this image of the outer darkness and the wailing and the gnashing of teeth is too real in the world right now and too present in the news to skip over and ignore that part of this parable. And I'm also thinking of this as we prepare to observe the Trans Day of Remembrance tomorrow. And it's a smaller scale of death, but nonetheless devastating and dark. The Trans Murder Monitoring Report documented 320 murders of transgender and gender diverse people over the past 12 months, most of them trans women of color. And we know that those deaths are often go unreported or misreported, so that is a low number. And we approach the holidays, and I know that many trans people and LGBTQ people feel very much in the outer darkness in terms of their relationships with families, and the holidays can be a really difficult time. I know many of you on this call are families who are loving and welcoming of those folks in your family, and that's a gift, and not everyone has that. So I wish that I could just sit here and tell you this is a nice parable about using our talents and we could all just get on with our lives, but I don't actually think that's what this parable is about. And I don't think it's fair to pretend like that's what it's about. The outer darkness and the wailing of gnashing of teeth, they up the ante here, but also because of the talents. It's just a weird quirk of the translation that the word talent is used, because what Jesus is talking about in this parable is a unit of money. There's discrepancy. No one's quite sure exactly how much a talent was, but there's general consensus that it was 600 denarius. And if you'll remember, the denarius from a couple of parables ago is what a worker was paid for a day's labor. So a talent is worth about 6,000 days wages, which comes out to 15 or 20 years worth of wages. So we're talking $1 million isn't much of a stretch to think that that's what a talent is worth. These are large sums of money that the master has given to his slaves. This is not a little kid's allowance. This is a proper business industry that is going on here. This parable is about money, like real substantial amounts of money. And it's about those in power who control the money. I mean, we have to ask ourselves, right, is there actually an ethical way that the first two servants could have doubled the money they were given while their master was gone? I mean, the only way to earn that kind of a return on your investment then or now is by exploiting people and or exploiting the land. This is not the kind of money that you make by making a modest investment in something. This is the kind of money you make by taking money from other people who have a lot less. So the servant who buries the master's talent is protecting the master's money. He's not stealing it. He's not insulting the master or actively seeking harm, but he is also not playing the master's game. He's not going along with whatever kind of exploitive business practices must be in play in this household for them to be getting this kind of return on their money. The servant says, in essence, I will hold on to your money and I will give you back what is yours, but I will not play your game. I will not use this money to take more money away from people who don't have enough so that you can have even more. But then when the master comes back, he reminds the servant how the world works, right? He says, to all those who have more will be given and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. Palestinian people already living as refugees in Gaza, having their refugee camps bombed. The people of northern Gaza are being told to flee to southern Gaza, only to have bombs being dropped also in southern Gaza. Transgender people who are already facing discrimination in their families and jobs and housing have to worry about hate crimes being committed against them, have to worry about hateful, damaging legislation that's being passed in state after state after state. The wealth gap, the income gap in the United States is just growing and growing, right? The rich are getting richer and the poor are not. We see this play out in so many ways in the world, that those who have get more and those who don't have enough to begin with have even what they do have taken away. We see people cast into the outer darkness for not playing along with the rules of the powerful. And I haven't quite decided if I find this utterly depressing or a little bit comforting to know that even in Jesus' day, this is how the world basically worked. That things are terrible right now, but they're not uniquely terrible. Everyone seems to like the word unprecedented, but nothing we're going through is really unprecedented, right? There's plenty of precedent after precedent after precedent of the darkness and the wailing and the gnashing of teeth. That's where worldly powers leave those who don't play along with the game. But, and this is what comes next in Matthew 25. And I know Mom's going off lectionary next week and you won't hear it next week. So we're going to hear it today. And you know it and it will be familiar, but listen to it in light of this parable that Jesus has just told, and know that the word but is in the original Greek, even though it's probably not in your English translations. Jesus tells this parable, and the master says, those who have more will be given. Those who have little, even what they have will be taken away. And Jesus says, but when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? And the king will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. And then he will say to those on his left hand, you who are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me, naked, and you did not give me clothing, sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they will also answer, Lord, when was it we saw you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and didn't take care of you? And then he will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, into the outer darkness with the wailing and the gnashing of teeth, but the righteous into eternal life. God's power is different from earthly power. The reign of God is different from the reign of humans. And in God's reign, it is not about making sure that those who already have a lot get even more. It is about serving those in need. God does not condemn the servant who buries his talent to the outer darkness, but God says, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. I don't think we can faithfully read the parable of the talents separate from Jesus' teaching on the sheep and the goats. And I don't think that I can face the darkness and the wailing and the teeth gnashing of this world without these words from Jesus about service and compassion and mercy. Because still today we know there are terribly unjust structures in place, and there's horrible violence and suffering in the world. And we work with God as we can and as we are called to change these systems and move towards a deeper peace. That all takes so much time. And in the meantime, there are hungry people to feed and lonely people to visit and sick people to tend to and strangers to welcome. So may we be faithful, not to the masters of this world, but to the calling of Christ, to compassion and love and mercy. Amen.